Hi everyone, and in today's video of Accelerated Chess Dragon, we're going to be looking at a game that was played between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura in the 2011 Tata Steel Championship. Now this game was played in Wyk on Zee in the Netherlands, and I like this game because Carlsen uses a strategy which makes his king untouchable from Nakamura. So, without further ado, let's see this game. Carlsen opens with e4 and Nakamura plays c5. Knight to f3 and now d6, e4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight to f6, knight c3, and now a6. So this marks the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian. Bishop to e2 by Carlsen, just developing, and now e5. Kicking the knight back, and now knight to b3. Bishop to e7, bishop to e3, castles, and now g4. Carlsen indicates that he wants to maybe play g5 to just dislodge the knight, or he wants to play g4, h4, f4, and start a pawn storm on Nakamura's king. Bishop e6, and now g5. Carlsen, of course, attacks the knight, and now Nakamura plays knight f to d7, and Carlsen plays h4, reinforcing his pawn as bishop takes g5 was a threat. Knight to b6, and now queen to d2. What this queen d2 move does is it's preparing castling, and it's also, again, reinforcing this g5 pawn and preparing moves such as f4 and even h5 because the g5 pawn is the right amount of times. Knight 8 d7, and now f4, giving Nakamura the choice whether he wants to allow f5, and then he can play bishop c4 or bishop b3, or whether he wants to take and maybe give Carlsen's bishop a very nice diagonal, namely this b8 h2 diagonal. And he goes for the second option. He plays e takes f4, and now Carlsen plays bishop takes f4. Knight to e5, and here Carlsen castles. Rook to c8, eyeing the c3 knight, and now king to b1 by Carlsen. He just sidesteps any attack that Nakamura might have with rook takes c3, maybe even bringing his knight into the game later with knight to a4, sorts of stuff like that. Queen to c7, trying to, again, put pressure on the c-file, and now h5. So Carlsen is trying to forge ahead and create an attack, mainly with g6, because that would try prying open some files. Rook f e8, and now the strategy that I was talking about, king to a1. And it's really hard to find a way to attack Carlsen's king. And Nakamura might have thought a while about how he'll do this, but he just decided to play bishop to f8 and keep his bishop safe a bit more. And also bishop f8 is trying to defend the king side of it. Knight to d4, bringing the knight back, maybe trying to bring the knight to f5, but also giving an attack on the e6 bishop. Queen c5, and now g6, trying to attack yet again. Knight ec4, and now captures on c4, and the other knight replaces it. Queen to d3, and here f takes g6. H takes g6, and Nakamura closes the position with h6. Although this now creates another target, because you can just take the pawn with bishop takes h6, and that is what Carlsen does in another few moves. So, queen g3, and now queen to b6, threatening this b2 pawn. And now bishop c1 by Carlsen. So he's reinforcing the b2 pawn, preventing queen takes b2 mate, and he's also just giving the queen access to the f5. Queen a5, and now rook df1, having a serious threat against Nakamura. And here Nakamura finds the threat, and he plays knight e5. And he plays this, and you might not think that there's any threat here in this position, but there actually is. Say that Nakamura plays something like b5, trying to continue his attack. How do you think that Carlsen can easily, let's say, win the game? Okay, so if you try to find the winning move, the move is rook takes f8 check. And the idea with this move is quite simple. You want to either deflect the rook on e8 from the bishop on e6, or after king takes f8, you're going to use this opportunity to bring your queen into f4, and this is decisive. You see, If king to e7 is played, then there's simply knight takes e6, and after king takes e6, queen f7 check, king here, and after queen f5, king here, queen d5 is mate. And the thing is that if, say king g8, then it's even worse, because after knight takes e6, we can see that more forces have started to come into Carlsen's position. You could play rook takes e6 as Nakamura, but that wouldn't help you, as that would actually lead to a mate in 4 moves, actually. Queen f7 check, king h8, and now rook takes h6 check, g takes h6, and queen h7. So this would be mate, and yeah. So this is why Nakamura did not play b5 and continue with his attack, but rather played knight e5, which not only defends his Carlsen's threat against him, but it creates a counter threat against Carlsen. Now, let's say Carlsen played rook h to g1 for some reason. How would Nakamura easily win the game? Okay, so if you found the move is actually rook takes c3. It's a very common idea employed a lot in the Sicilian Najdorf and Dragon. And the idea is basically to remove the defender of the c3 knight. And the c3 knight was guarding the a2 pawn, which is a crucial pawn, actually, because now we can see that if Carlsen grabs the rook, then queen takes a2 is mate. And it's the same if b takes c3. Queen takes a2 would also be mate. But there's another problem. Carlsen cannot really do anything about it. He would have to play b3 and give up his queen. After rook takes g3, rook takes g3. I mean, Carlsen would definitely not want to play this position. So instead, he just plays knight to d5, offering a pawn, but for a very important reason. To get rid of that light square bishop, which was actually a very good defender of black's king. So bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and now queen takes d5. And here, Carlsen starts his breakthrough. He plays bishop takes h6. And here, Nakamura cannot take the knight on d4, because if he does this, then bishop e3, and after queen g4, rook h8 check. King takes h8, queen h2, queen, let's say h4, then queen takes h4, and at the end of the day, Carlsen has gotten mate. So therefore, Nakamura cannot grab the knight, and if he just allows Carlsen to consolidate with, say, rook c7, then Carlsen can just play bishop e3, and now he's simply winning. So that is why Nakamura's hand is kind of forced with g takes h6. And here Carlsen just pushes g7, saying to Nakamura that if you play bishop takes g7, then I will play knight f5, and now all my pieces are in the game. Because now if you play rook c7, then this could happen. And that's mate. Or, if after bishop takes g7, knight f5, if you don't do anything about it, queen takes g7 is going to lead to mate. So, yeah. So, that is why bishop e7 was forced by Nakamura. But this does only good for Carlsen because it allows him to play rook takes h6. And now Carlsen gets even more and more pieces into the game. He's threatening rook to h8 checkmate. And after knight to f7, Carlsen plays queen g6 now, and he's bringing yet more pieces into the game. Knight f7 was played mainly to guard rook h8, but after knight f7, queen g6, knight takes h6, queen takes h6, Carlsen is making the same threat over again, but with the queen instead of a rook. And here, Nakamura plays bishop f6, tempting Carlsen's queen to either take on f6 with the queen or with the rook. Taking with the rook is not good because that would lead to a back rank mate. And if you take with the queen, this, yes, is playable, but now queen h5, and I think Nakamura, it's safe to say that Nakamura has found a defense. So Carlsen, of course, not wanting that to happen, instead plays queen h8 check. And after king to f7, can you try finding the move that Carlsen played? Okay, so rook takes f6 check is one move. I can totally agree with that. Because it looks like you're trying to tempt the king to take the rook, and then you simply get g8 queen. However, that's not the move, because after simply king to e7, I believe, After king to e7, it's a drawn game. Say queen h4. Even though this looks winning, it's completely drawn. There's not much you can do here. Because as black, Nakamura can just hide his king on d7, and now, I mean, okay, it looks very good for you, but what have you really achieved? Nothing, right? So that's why Carlsen did not play rook takes f6, but rather he played g8 queen. Giving up this queen, this newborn queen, but he has an idea with this. After rook takes g8, now there's a double attack on the bishop on f6, and Carlsen plays queen takes f6 check, forcing Nakamura's king to go to e8, and now the killer blow, rook e1 check. Now, this forces a lot of matters. Actually, here, Nakamura decided to resign the game, but if, say, king to d7, then queen e7 would be checkmate, and if Nakamura wanted to play queen e5, then that would be no better, as after rook takes e5, d takes e5, even Carlsen can just play queen e6 check, and he's going to win one of the rooks. Say this, or say this. The point is that Carlsen would be up way too much material for Nakamura to handle, and that is why after this 37th rook e1 check move, Nakamura resigned the game. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions or feedback for me, please let me know in the comment section, and stay tuned for more chess.